G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name's James, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Today I'm going to be doing my 2022 journal lineup video. It's going to be really chatty and really long, so strap yourself in, grab a journal, grab a drink, just chill out with me. I'm going to go through absolutely every single thing I intend on using right now, but I guess everything comes with that little disclaimer. It's all subject to change throughout the year. Depending on my mood and what I need to have happen, I will be flexible to those needs, but this is everything that I've got right now and stuff that's kind of already been in progress for, you know, a couple of years now. But yeah, I think I've kind of found my flow. It changes a lot. Like, I've just made a big decision to switch into something from last year that I hadn't really done for a long time. So yeah, I mean, let's go through it all. Let's start with daily stuff first. So these two journals are ones that I see every day. This is the Hobonichi Techo A6 size, and it's my daily planner. And this is the Hobonichi 5-year, also A6 size, and this is my 5-year journal. So this just kind of documents, actually, you know what? I'm going to do some like overlay footage. I'm just going to take B-roll footage of all of these, so while I talk about them, you'll have something to look at, see what's inside the journals. But yeah, I see these every day. The 5-year one, I kind of just document what I do throughout the day, my feelings about it, my thoughts. It's been really, really fascinating. I just made a whole video on this as well, so if you're curious to see more about my 5-year and where it's at currently, I think I put it up a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, but yeah, it's in my channel, so go have a look at that. The Hobonichi Techo planner, I actually started in 2019. Am I lying? I was lying to you. It was 2020. 2019, I think, is when I started the 5-year. 2020, I did the second half of the year in one of these little planners, and before that I was using a Traveler's Company vertical weeks, and then I think I used the horizontal one as well. Both of them were undated, just because I would start in them and then I would kind of stop in them when I had weeks where I wasn't really planning much, or like if I went on holidays, so I didn't really have any blank spreads. But I wanted to just shake it up a little bit. It wasn't that that wasn't working for me. In fact, you'll see later I've actually gone back to Traveler's Notebooks for journaling, but I just wanted to shake it up because with planning it can be a little dull, and sometimes I just need to kind of reinvigorate myself a little bit. So through the second half of that year, for 2020, I used the Hobonichi A6 just to see if I could get a good feel for it. And I have these Mina Peronen piece covers. The one I got in 2020, I was in the lottery for, and I was lucky enough to win that one. But for 2021, I didn't win the lottery cover. So actually, I mean, I used this cover all throughout 2021. But for 2022, I ended up just going back through the archives, and I found this beautiful piece cover, and it's from 2014. And so I purchased that off eBay. So it was nice. I actually got to kind of give it a new home, give it a new life. And I've been using this ever since in 2022. And I will use this throughout the whole year. I've got that little bit of a collector brain going on with the Mina Peronen piece covers. I didn't really love the spring mix of fabrics. So hopefully throughout later in the year, there'll be another version that I can get for 2023, because I do feel really committed to these little Hobonichis. I don't mind if there are blank pages. For me, this serves as its sole function as a planner. If there's little bits and pieces of stuff lying around my desk, I'll put them in there, kind of glue it in. But yeah, for me, it's mostly just planning, tracking certain things like going to Zumba. I like to track that. Yeah, making sure that all of my weeks and months and plans flow successfully. I was not much of a planner towards the start of my business. If you saw me back in the start of JLB Creative, I tried my hand out a little bit. Had a sketch planner for a year. I really enjoyed that, but then they changed all the how that worked, so I didn't like it when it changed. I mean, it's not like I hated it, but it just didn't work for me anymore. But yeah, I kind of need to plan. I've got so many things that happen so far in advance, and I always forget when things are coming up, and the time between things just doesn't even really register to me. So planning is a bit essential, and I don't give myself any rules about how these journals should look. My 5-year, I discussed that in that video. You know, I just want to finish it. I just want to make sure that it's all in there, it's all documented, that the 5 years are captured. However else it looks will be how it is. And then especially for my planners, I'm not one of those like, oh, everything has to be decorated, every page has to have something on it, every blah blah. I don't care. In fact, a lot of the page in 10 videos, if not all of them, are just working in my Hobonichi planners, my little A6 planners, because there are just a bunch of blank pages and it's a shame to waste paper. So I do like to try and use it if I can, and that little series has been a great way to just play in there in all the blank pages. So that is that. My planner, I plan you know, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Actually, I don't plan into the next year. I do have everything I kind of feel like I want to know for 2022, but the first year I did really set specific, you know, this has to happen on this date, this has to happen on this date. It was 2020. I'd made a whole video about it. It was called 2020 Visions, and I was so committed to it, and I was like, well, I'll be flexible if things change, and then lo and behold, everything changed. So I've been a bit gun shy to go back to that sort of rigid, everything has to happen on a certain date. It's definitely all dated in here and all planned for certain dates, but it's extremely flexible. You know, I dare say I don't make any solid plans more than a month out. Like that, I usually only work within a few, like 3 to 4 weeks ahead of myself. So that's planners. Yeah, those are daily things. Other things I do, you know, I would hope that I would get a chance to draw and sketch daily, but it just doesn't happen all the time anymore. So, you know, I have to either make time for it or like work it in. But stuff that happens more, I'm going to call weekly, like throughout the week, I will pick all of these journals up, is my Traveler's Notebook stuff here. It's actually all of this stuff. Let's start with the Traveler's Notebooks. The Traveler's Notebooks I have here are the limited editions from the Narita Airport and from the Tokyo Station Traveler's Factory. Sorry, random jump cut, Steve called me. So these are my Traveler's Notebooks, and these are what I'd say I pick up throughout the week. This is church, kind of like faith stuff. Inside I have, they're called Car Crea, and they were, I think, 200 yen. Yeah, they were in a discount bin at random store in Japan. So I picked 2 of those up, and I really love the paper. It's this grid, super smooth paper. It's like, ugh, it feels so good to touch. But yeah, I do all of my like journaling at church and faith stuff in there. I like to keep that separate just because it's very heavy. Not bad, but like it's just a lot of heavy thought processes. So I keep that there. And then this one is it's got a bunch in here actually. So last year in December, or just before December, I think I started in November, I wanted to do kind of a December daily-ish in a traveler's notebook, and I used a Job's Journal insert. It was pre-decorated, so all the pages had like printed stuff on there, and I did this Christmas journal, and I absolutely loved it. It's so much fun, so full of stuff, and it's basically a December daily-ish, but there was no hard and fast rules about doing it every day. I just did it as it happened and absolutely loved it. So, because I loved it so much, I thought, let me do this again, and I'll do it for my trip to Australia. Originally, I was just going to take this craft traveler's notebook to kind of jot down everything that I was doing, and then I was going to take this sketch one if I want to do any drawing. And when I got there, my nephew, who's 7 years old, he wanted to do the journaling with me. So I gave him the sketch one, and he filled up this entire traveler's notebook, and it is just the most precious thing ever. I'm planning on doing a flip of this when I do my Australia video in the future, so I'll put that to the side. But the craft one, I ended up doing it because since he was going to journal, I wasn't going to miss that opportunity to do it with him. And I made kind of a junk journal of sorts from my trip to Australia. It's still got stuff that I want to put in there, but ultimately it just became like a Smashbook, like a glue book, just kind of throw everything in there, junk journal style, and I absolutely loved that as well. So when I came home, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep going with that. Obviously, I'm having fun with it because this is the second one I've done in a couple of months. So let me just start another one. And I took this, this used to be my journal I would take to pottery. So you can see some of my old pottery notes in there. I've used this as my new kind of Smashbook, glue book, junk journal, and this has only been, I think I've been in this for about a week, and it is just chock-a-block full of junk that's been laying around my desk. And illustrations, we did these on Instagram lives. I am just loving the free and easy lifestyle of kind of throwing it all in there and not having to worry too much about, making spreads or making it look pretty or aesthetically pleasing or having any kind of, there's no skill to it really. It's basically just gluing it in, stapling it in wherever it fits. But it's not to say that I won't ever do those other styles of journaling. I tend to keep that more for my workshops now, or if I just catch the urge to do it. But I'm just currently in a mood where I just want to throw everything in here and de-stash everything. I've been doing that over the past few months, even with my ephemera and just stuff at my desk. If I find I'm going through a pencil pot and I'm sick of seeing the same things in there, like I will get rid of all the things I don't want, keep it, you know, kind of fresh and, you know, just to exactly the way I want it. And I just feel reinvigorated by all of that. I think after a few years, and especially collecting a lot of stuff, I do love all the stuff that I have, but sometimes you just get a little overwhelmed with things popping up out of nowhere, and, you know, suddenly there's no organization to anything anymore, and I needed to kind of shake it up a little bit. So I did that with my planner a couple of years ago. Now I'm doing it with the journaling and going into more of this junk journal style, which is actually pretty new for me. I don't typically do this. Back in the day, I would do what I would consider something similar, which is kind of like a Smashbook or like scrapbooking-ish. And I did those in massive A3, like visual art diaries, the spiral bound ones. Do you remember those from school? So yeah, I'm kind of excited to do it into Traveler's Notebooks because I love the Traveler's Notebook format, and it was kind of one of the first obsessions I had with journaling back in the day when I really wanted to start creating art journals and keeping them for more than just a sketchbook. But having said that, I've used this one as a sketchbook, and I kept this one back in the day. I was using as a sketchbook for these kind of creatures that I would collage together out of things that I would notice around the house or around whatever location I was at. I called it collage and illustration, that process, and it's still something really fun to do, but I kind of dedicated this journal to it until I realized I had never gone past this page. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this back up because the paper is just gorgeous to draw in. These are the Traveler's Factory notebooks, but I think they're the 003 insert. These are the cream paper. First of all, I love the cream. It's a little softer on my eyes, but not that the white is aggressive. It's just a touch softer. And the paper is super smooth. It feels so nice to draw on. So I've just been doing illustrations in here and keeping this as a sketchbook, and I'm absolutely loving that. So it's all going on in here. I'll keep working in that one, and I keep both of those in my Traveler's Notebook leather cover here. It's just the brown, pretty classic. It's got a pen loop, which I don't usually use. I've got some charms on there, patches. I like to put patches on here. And yeah, this is kind of something I pick up throughout the week. Like I said, sketching, I'll do it in that little sketchbook, and then anything that just roams around somewhere. Like I've even got this little post-it note of the order of things that I wanted to speak about in the film, in my YouTube video today. So I'm just gonna pop that in here, and this is about as fancy as I get, like as, you know, carefully planned as I get. When I see things just lying around, they go straight into here, and I guess you could call it maybe a garbage can journal. Because most of the stuff should just go in the bin. I like to think of it as recycling, but yeah, loving that. Just super into it right now. That could all change though, because I know me. And usually when I get obsessive about something like that, I don't feel like there's a long shelf life on those obsessions. So that's one of those things where even though I'm saying it's been a couple of months of enjoying it, that may not make it through to the end of 22, but really enjoying it for now. And the one last thing I'm going to add to that, because you've already seen the other few, this is just a refill for a short trip. I'm making a little addendum? I don't know what to call it, but like a companion. I'm making a companion Traveler's Notebook to my Australia trip because there was tons of photos. I was actually practicing some of my manual photography in Australia because I used to only shoot on automatic. I also bought myself one of the little mini cameras that I got Elijah. Steve and I bought Elijah a camera for Christmas that he just loves. He took so many photos and videos on it. We've even edited together a full little mini reel of his little videos, and it's the most precious thing to watch. Anyway, had so many photos, I'm going to make this kind of like a photo album, but scrapbook style, or I guess you would call it, what's that one? I don't know what it's called. Project Lifestyle. There you go. But I'm going to do it in this Traveler's Notebook, and it's only a refill for a short trip, so it's actually, I think it's half the size of a regular Traveler's Notebook, so 32 pages, and that should definitely be enough to post all my photos in. That way I can keep them together and I don't feel like I've not put all the photos I wanted to put in there, because there were tons and I really want to include them. So that is those. here we have the other things that I pick up kind of weekly, and this big Hobonichi cousin, actually both of these are a Hobonichi cousin. This is a Sojourner cover. This one, oh, that's just floating around in there. This one, both of these were given to me as a gift from someone who decided they didn't want to use the rest of them. And I was also, it was around the time where I was saying I was just curious to try them. So I think I actually got them in 2019 or maybe 2020. Actually, I think it was around 2020. But I used these as planners for my workshops. This one specifically is kind of a planner for my workshop, the one that I keep in the Sojourner cover. And this one that has no cover on it was the same thing as what are now my Traveler's Notebook Smashbooks. This was where all of the stuff that had no home came to live. And there's still a lot of stuff in here. This was like a big de-stash project for me where I was finding things from like 2016 and 17, and I was putting them in here. Lots of notes on how I was planning my workshops, lots of products that I never made, lots of information that's still relevant to things that I can't show you yet. This is also the notebook that I was doing my thumbnails for my Art Snacks videos in. I've got some Virtual Voyage 6 information in here. So yeah, I still use this one. This is kind of like again, one of those glue book, smash book type things, but also my notebook. I work a lot of stuff out in here. So I get nervous to share this sometimes because unless I go through and literally scan every page for information, like I don't work chronologically. I just find an empty space and start working in it. I don't know what I'm going to share and accidentally expose. So you don't get to see too much of this one. I mean, there's lots of fun just like glue pages and scribbles everywhere. But yeah, for the most part, I just keep this one off to the side of my desk and pick it up every time I need to go through an idea. More so now with the workshops, I do it in the one that's in the cover, because this one chunked up so much it's actually a little cumbersome to use. And then the one that I do all the workshop prep in, I keep that pretty much just for workshop stuff. So actually, I don't know why I didn't do my Virtual Voyage 6 in there. So this is the thing, if they're all just whatever's closest to hand, I will just grab and start working in. So this is why I have to be a bit careful about what lays around my desk, because I could just accidentally shift my preferences just for what I can reach. And the last thing I'll show you, it kind of popped out in that little journal. This was one that I did like just Instagram lives on, I think, or just worked out little ideas. This is really fun. But I use Handbound Journals, and these are things that I use, I was going to say monthly, but that's not really a fair assessment. I use these for workshops or other kinds of like art journaling type stuff. So from my workshop specifically, like Virtual Voyage 6 and like, you know, even the Memory to Memento one, I was using these watercolor paper, the cold press watercolor paper Handbound Journals. I've started binding them myself. I learned how, and I just really love them. They're just kind of inserts, and I keep them composition notebook size because it's the most convenient for me to scan and create worksheets with at 100% size. So now that I've figured all that out, I do it. But in the beginning, they used to be US letter sized. I always had to just slightly reduce them a little bit. So yeah, I do it composition notebook size, and I just do my workshops in here. So Virtual Voyages, I have other workshops that I'm planning. I do lots of art journaling stuff in here, like painting and, you know, big illustrations and stuff. It's just nice to be able to work on that paper rather than working on, you know, a sketch paper or something that's not going to hold up to all those mediums that I like to experiment with, especially through all that creative learning with the art journaling workshops. And this one here, this one was for Wizarding Artists Society. So Art Journaling the Magic, I also have a separate bunch of journals for that. And that would be my golden book journals. I have a whole little row of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15. There are 15. I haven't filled them all. Some of them are completely finished though. This one's completely empty. I actually think this is Steve's. I don't think he wants me to use this Cocoa one, but I will if I need to. Yeah, so I use the golden book journals for Art Journaling the Magic and any kind of Disney related stuff. Then these big hand-bound ones for Wizarding Artists Society, and these are really, really fun to work in. Again, it's just, for a lot of those workshop type stuff, you're doing lots of mixed media, so it's just hard to do it in anything that won't take that. And some of the papers are fun to work watercolors in. Like, I love the Tomoe River paper and the crinkle it gets when you work with watercolors on there and mixed media, but after a while, like, it gets hard to learn the techniques properly, because there are things like glazing that, you know, on the Tamora River paper, you kind of do struggle to make that work. So, you know, purely for learning and getting the most out of the mediums, I think it's important to have some of these watercolor paper journals around. They do tend to be the most expensive, so I think if you can learn to do a simple saddle stitch, you will save yourself a ton of money. Coptic stitch? Saddle stitch? I'm not quite sure. Either way, if you can stick some watercolor sheets together, you'll definitely save yourself a ton of money on those art journals. But these are also just super fun to play in, just because they're big as well, and I just love to play with all my supplies. But yeah, it's not really monthly, it's just kind of whenever those things come up, which for Wizarding Artist Society, that's Art Journaling Magic, that's once a month. The Disney stuff, the Happy Place, that's once a month, or whenever they do retreats, which is kind of a few times a year. My workshops happen a few times a year, so I'm always in and out of these big ones, but yeah, they're not something that I would just grab quickly to do, you know, to write a list in, or, you know, if they were just next to my desk, probably that would happen. But I also kind of limit myself, because the way that I share them, I think it'd just be confusing if, as the teacher, I was sharing images from my journal, you know, where we're doing exercises, and then suddenly you see on the side of it my plans for next week or like a list of things I need to buy for, you know, something coming up in the future. So I tend to keep it just focused on whatever the theme of that workshop is, if that makes sense. But yeah, big watercolor handbound journals. So that is everything for my 2022 lineup. Oh, here come the sirens. Alrighty, sirens are gone. Sorry about that. I think I was saying that is my lineup. That's my 2022 set of journals. I will keep flexible, as I always do, just to make the changes that I would like to make as I go along on this creative journey. I'm really happy that I got to share that with you. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm usually terrible at answering them, but I will give it my best shot. This is just a video of how I like to do things and what's working for me right now. Please just remember that if it works for me and it doesn't work for you, you're not doing it wrong. You just have something else that you need to do. Like, it's never that deep. I think we can get a little caught up sometimes with these videos in particular, because ultimately we're looking with the eyes that understand, you know, your own experience. And so if you've been struggling with things like keeping a daily journal, or keeping a 5-year journal, or, you know, throwing things into a journal and stapling it all together and it doesn't even look pretty and you don't care. If you've been struggling to actually do those things because they're just not you, that's completely fine. They're just not you. They may be me, and maybe they're me right now, but they won't even be me next year or 2 years ago, right? So we're all kind of just where we're at, and I think it's the most important thing to focus on what actually does work for you. And that all comes from a place of identifying what you want. Like, what do you want from it? What do you need from it? Some people don't even need anything, they just want something. But I've found that over time, like, what I need from all these journals is an outlet for creative expression. And that is, it purely stemmed, and it's so funny that it kind of crashed together at that same time. Pardon the terrible pun. Came from my accident. I had so much of my creative expression being expressed through dance, which is a very physical way to do it, and also a very emotional way to do it as well when you're kind of taking on some of those roles. It was one of those things that I never had to worry about because it was always there. But when I lost that and I didn't have a place to kind of offload all of that pent-up creative energy, I really, really felt it, and I really noticed how irritated it made me, how agitated I would get, and how upset I was. So finding this as an outlet for it, it's by no means the only outlet. There are plenty of ways to go about that, but it became something I needed. And so what I wanted was to be able to get it all out, to express it all. I wanted to draw it out, paint it out, photograph it out, write it out, whatever way I felt like might be fun to try. And also, I didn't have to be good at it either. Like, I like to grow the skills. I like to be better than I was before, because that's just something I like. But I heard a really interesting thing the other day about, I think it was for adult ice skaters, which ironically I've always wanted to be a figure skater. This guy was saying, just because it's your hobby doesn't mean that you're like obliged age to be any good at it. You don't have to be good. If you want to be, that's great too, but there's no obligation for you to be, you know, the best at it, or even to look good at it, or to do well at it. You can just do it because it makes you feel good and that's what you want to do. So for me, that's what journaling is. Definitely I have these moments where I want to grow skills, or I want to try something, or I want to be good at something, because that's what I want. But ultimately as well, like, I can make those Smashbooks where I just staple it all together. I don't care. I'm just going to find it all a home and just be done with it, because it doesn't have to look good. It has to serve a function. It has to serve a purpose. And the purpose for me is I love to collect all those stupid memories. I don't want to throw away the wristband. I don't want to throw away the sticker. I want it. So I want to keep it. And it's hoarding if it doesn't end up in a journal. So I need a journal for it. And there it is. That's how that kind of evolves. There's a need for that. It may be the most ridiculous need to some people, but that's okay with me. It's a need that I have. It's something that I like. Nostalgia is one of my favorite feelings. So of course I'm going to start collecting and keep collecting all the junk that I find around my life. And I want it to be in a journal so I can have access to it whenever I want. So, you know, there are just certain needs and wants and desires that we have. And I think getting in tune with those, getting in touch with those is a really good way to bring clarity to the process, or like the setup that you have. I'm trying not to give too much advice here, because I think by this point everyone's got their years sorted anyway, but it's always a good thing to check back in with, because those needs, desires, wants, they change as well. They grow with you over time, and just always, you know, kind of check back in with that, because I feel like that's kind of been the most helpful thing for me, especially when all the noise of like social media and marketing, sales pitches gets really loud. It's not at this time of year, but I still don't take for granted that, you know, I'm putting another video out there that could make you think differently and have opinions about your own setups, right? I don't want you to take any of those with more than a grain of salt, because it would only be worth it to you if you and I had the same, you know, the same goal, the same desire and need for these journals. So if you're someone that is looking for that creative expression, of course I would tell you to go and do it the way that I've experienced success and joy doing it. But also the how you do it might need to be different. You may hate watercolors, so you may never need those watercolor journals. Anyway, I think I'm explaining the obvious here, but obviously do what works for you. Have fun doing it. Don't be afraid to share it either. Social media is becoming a lot more kind of raw and stripped back these days, and I'm really, really loving it. I don't think we're feeling the need to, you know, glamorize everything and sugarcoat everything. And I think I'm having a really nice kind of social media revolution happen in front of my eyes. There seems to be a whole lot less of, you know, maybe it's just the bubble that I'm in, but a whole lot less of like pushy sales pitches to buy everything, and just a really good, honest look at where people are at and what they're doing. And that oftentimes, if not 100% of the time, is the most inspirational thing to see. Just people's passion on display, you know, whether it's quote unquote aesthetically pleasing or good or, you know, profitable, or like none of that matters. The pure passion behind it, the pure joy behind it, just really gets me going. And that's why I think one of my favorite journals of all time is Elijah's, just because it's so pure, it's so unfiltered, it is just so expressive and so imaginative, and it's just so honest, and I just love it. So I'm going to keep this close to me at all times. Just whenever I need some inspiration, I'm going to flip through this and just think, what would Elijah do? That's it for me. That's my 2022 lineup. Thank you again for joining me. I'll speak to you another time soon. Until then, bye.